What is a COO? So many small business owners, they're solo operators. They don't have a second in command, a COO or integrator working next to them on a day-to-day basis, especially in the early days. Once organizational maturity reaches a certain threshold, a de facto operations leader emerges by necessity. There's an opportunity opening up made possible by emerging technology, specifically artificial intelligence, that will allow the solo practitioner to bring in an AI COO. Let me explain. Translating vision into execution. Just like great visionary CEOs are rare, a great integrator, a great operations leader, that's even rarer. The requirements of humility and the ability to subjugate one's ego and submit as a supporting mechanism to the one that's spearheading the charge, an expeditionary force, one that's a high-level strategic thinker and a low-level tactical operator. Having that ability to bridge strategy and operations is critical for an integrator, a good integrator, where they are an intermediating force, an interface that translates a vertical dissemination of information throughout the organization, weaving together this cultural tapestry of strategy execution. But what does it look like when you're a solo operator? What does it look like when you're a small business owner with a handful of hourly paid employees? You can't afford a six-figure annual salary. You can't afford laying down four figures a month for some fractional to come in and give you advice, especially when $20 a month on ChatGPT will give you probably better advice and even faster at greater volumes and perhaps with a higher degree of specificity. We are definitely entering into a new paradigm with regard to expertise. Narrow field expertise is going the way of the dinosaur, going extinct. We are moving away from a hyper-specialized knowledge economy and into the era of the deep generalist. If you think of the T model for skills, you have a broad set of skills, the total scope of work for any particular role. And then typically what we've seen over the last several decades is that narrow field specialization going deep into that T model across 1 to 3 complementary skill sets renders the greatest outcomes over the course of a career. Those deeper levels of specialization are being rapidly augmented by AI. So what does a shrewd operator do when we think about where things are going, skating to puck is going? The deep generalist is going to be a highly valuable asset to any organization. You can think of this like a comb model. It's got a meaningful level of depth across a broad range. The language I like is it has teeth. It's dangerous enough to make a difference across multiple areas. In business, that looks like marketing and sales and strategy and process development and project management and hiring, firing, promoting, leadership, culture reinforcement, branding. Those are all areas you have to have teeth in order to be an effective expeditionary leader. You think of Ernest Shackleton, British explorer who wanted to embark on a perilous expedition in Antarctica. And he had to be an expeditionary leader. He didn't have the luxury of being visionary alone and falling victim to the lofty pie in the sky ideals while execution was absent. He wasn't a philosopher, he was a doer. He was a practitioner, an executor, an operator. Shackleton accounted for the details while maintaining a big picture vision. That's critical. That balance is everything. In fact, there's an even deeper precedent behind this. A great book called On Grand Strategy by John Lewis Gaddis said, the essence of great strategy is found at the intersection between aspirations and capabilities. When our eyes are to the sky, but our boots are on the ground. That balance is the way forward for deep generalists in the AI era that we are in today. It's not tomorrow, it's not next year, it's already upon us. So how do we become deep generalists? Great question. Just like if you're hiring any role in an organization, the first thing we ask is, what are the responsibilities? What are the core processes and KPIs, metrics associated with that role? if it's a content manager, if it's a web developer, if it's a sales guy, if it's a project manager, there needs to be a job description associated with that role that we can clearly pin up on an org chart and understand lines of communication and reporting and accountability. We can understand what indications we will have, quantifiable indications of success for that role. What metrics are they moving in the business? And what processes are they going to follow in order to be successful? That's table stakes for running an effective hiring round, for recruiting in talent. Those are absolute bare bones table stakes for doing it well. That speaks nothing to the cultural and leadership requirements of preserving top talent, maintaining high levels of engagement, and retaining a solid team of high performers long term. But that's a conversation for another day. When you think about becoming a lethal asset that's dangerous and has teeth across a wide breadth of skills in the AI age, well, first we have to map out the total scope of work. We have to map out the role and responsibilities of that, the core processes associated with executing tasks within that scope, and the metrics, the KPIs, the key performance indicators, that the numbers that will be moved if that individual does their job right. So when you think about a COO, the first thing that comes up is translating vision into execution, into reality, translating strategy into operations, theory into practice. That sounds great. Where can I find one of these COOs? That's what I start thinking. Where can I find one of these second in commands to take an idea that I have, a vision I've uncovered, I've crafted, I've been called towards, the thing that's keeping me up at night? How do I take that and bring it to reality, having someone else spearhead that? That sounds incredible. That is why great integrators, great fractional COOs, the idea of an AI COO is so incredibly valuable. I'm going to stop here for a minute. As a younger man, I had a sense that it would be really important for me to do something hard. At 18 years old, I decided to enlist in the Marine Corps infantry, as opposed to going and studying video game design, kind of a polar opposites. But my mom asked me, why do you want to do this? And the only answer I could think of is I have to do something hard. I got what I wanted for, I'll tell you that much. On the other side of it, 2 deployments to Afghanistan in the infantry, carrying a saw machine gun on the first pump, doing dismounted foot patrols and all sorts of other things. On the other side, I got what I wanted. In the years since, as I've matured, as I've gained perspective, I've realized one of the things that makes the role of a Marine infantryman, of grunt, difficult is they're the bridge between strategy and execution. They're the interface between theory and practice. It's one to stand around terrain model of a village where your squad, where your platoon will be conducting a raid, and to receive a mission briefing and talk about the scheme and maneuver and how things are going to go down. That's one thing. It is a completely other thing to be boots on the ground, ramps down, assaulting a village at the break of dawn, filled with enemy combatants. That's a completely different thing. On the one side, you have preparation. One of my favorite quotes is by Abraham Lincoln. And he says, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. Preparation is so important. We never rise to the occasion. We always fall back on our level of preparation, on our training. So it's so important to appreciate that. In my view, I think that a lot of small business owners miss the mark in regard to valuing appropriate levels of preparation, training, of honing their craft, of pursuing mastery. You don't achieve mastery on the playing field. You achieve it in the 10,000 plus hours in practice. So having that practice, that training, that preparation space is critical. Eisenhower said that plans are ultimately useless, but planning is invaluable. All of these words, all of these concepts are getting to the same thing, which is there's a domain in life that is a intention setting. And then there's another domain, which is the application of that intention. Another personal anecdote, many years after I returned home from the Marine Corps, I tried my hand in the fitness industry. And very quickly, I found myself certified as a personal trainer, not too hard to do, and training clients. Fortunately, I had an abundance of experience facilitating programs for Marines, but I found myself training senior citizens in Bonita Springs, Florida. Dudes with shoulder replacements and knee replacements and fused spines, and they were 80 plus years old. That is way different territory than training a 19-year-old grunt. So what did I do? I studied theory and practice of exercise science and kinesiology. I studied and I practiced and I mastered my craft. And I learned exercise programming. I learned how to facilitate a movement practice for diverse populations. It's one thing, though, to program out a great exercise routine. It's another thing to do it. Saying that you have to do 4 sets of 12 reps with a barbell back squat is completely different than actually getting under the bar and busting out the reps. So there's that duality, there's that dual nature. In business, the CEO's job to set the vision, to cast the net forward in time, to establish a trajectory forward. That's the CEO's role. That's the visionary capability set. That's a gift that some people have a lot more of that ability than others. And the people with extra measure typically find themselves with their hands on the helm of an organization and are navigating it. Moving that theory into practice is a totally different skill set. As we've established, planning for a mission versus executing it, building a workout routine versus conducting it, doing the workout, crafting a business model, executing on it. Both are coupled together. That's the nature of them. All of this conversation is to lead us to a single finding. And I'm at the first bullet point. That's all we're going to get to today. And this is what actually established the base logic of the venture map several years ago, after a mind-numbing pursuit that easily cost me thousands of hours. And it's that the inherent coupling between theory and practice, strategy and operations. Today, the venture map is representative of those two domains. We have the organization pane, right? It's like a pane of glass, a giant rectangle basically inside of Miro. And then we have an overlapping pane or box that's called operations. In our organization, we have our knowledge base, essentially, our primary data set that informs execution, that informs our operations. This is where we define what's most important, like our culture, our brand identity, our business architecture. This is where our growth plan comes to light, where we can see a planning horizon. Where do we want to be in 3 years, in 1 year, in 90 days? What does that mean we have to do this month, this week, today? That ability to integrate through time is essential to a COO. And by the grace of God, we have that ability through AI today. One thing I've discovered over almost a year, by Thanksgiving, this just a few short months out, it would have been a year of dedicated effort in our productization play for the venture map. Now, we've been working to productize for many years. I'm going on 6 years in this beast. But for the last year, we've been in school. And for reasons that will extend far beyond the scope of this conversation today, building in public, having a community of people to build for, being chief among them. What we did was we built a ton of full-scale venture maps in a fraction of the time for a fraction of the cost. It used to take 3 months and cost multiple 4 figures. Then we said it should take a week and take $100. It's fully refundable. Actually, a few of my advisors encouraged me not to do it. People I respect and I'm grateful for, they didn't understand and they were concerned. Few people were actually concerned when I started telling them what I was planning to do. It was the best possible move for the business though, because what we got from that was very high resolution heat maps of the most valuable element in the venture map to start, the beachhead, the foothold, the first step into defining a second brain inside of Miro. This is the basis for a self-optimizing enterprise. And as an operations leader who spent the last decade bridging strategy and execution, the first thing I do in any organization is map it out, get a sense for the terrain. Who's who? What's happening? Where are we going? Where have we been? Where are we at now? All those questions have to be answered. Again, a lot of CEOs will ask for recommendations. I say, well, I don't have enough information to make a sound judgment call yet. That's why we sharpen our axe before we swing. That's why we map out an organization at first, among other reasons. Organization, operations. These two panels are overlapping. In organization, we have our culture, our brand, and our business architect. Everything falls underneath of those 3 things. Once we have that dialed in, The rest of the work becomes relatively easy, at least with regard to production of collateral, generating bespoke artifacts for the business, whether they're market facing or internal, becomes unbelievably straightforward with the enablement of generative AI, if we do it right, because it's essentially creating knowledge bases and master prompts across a range of formats, across a range of topics. Anything that we're going to do in the business is essentially going to be enabled by a data lake, by our series of high quality, well segmented repositories that enable fine-tuned AI models to work on our behalf. That's important. It's the high quality data in that allows for the high quality data out. If we have the organizational structure, we're solid for the next step. What's the next step? Once we check the theory, move into practice, we move into execution. This is where our people, our projects, and our processes are nested within the overall VentureMap architecture. These two overlapping panels compose the base logic, the base framework for the board. Final thing, and we'll leave it at this, what's the overlap? What is that overlapping section? That is the ultimate question. That's our experience. That's our brand experience, where our customers and our employees experience the reality of our business. It's one thing to have metrics on a dashboard. It's another thing to have our processes documented and our people on some sort of chart and have a weekly and daily tempo that's executing. That's one thing. That's sort of backstage. That's the internal rhythm of operations. But mapping out the customer experience through time, we leverage service blueprinting to give us levels of interaction. We provide clarity on functional areas within the business through different phases that are informed by a number of best practices. The most significant contributor of them being Joey Coleman in his book, Never Lose a Customer Again, and his second book, Never Lose an Employee Again, both fantastic reads. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Donald Miller for his work in Marketing Made Simple, and Russell Brunson's Traffic Secrets, and Justin Mayer's Traction. All of those books contributed significantly to the 10 phases that we have. We basically have two sections. We have acquisition, fulfillment. This is the overlap between organization and operations. This is the experience panel of the VentureMap, where the money is made. This is critical. This is where we define the steps, the key moments on our journey for acquiring customers and then fulfilling on the promises we made to them in our value proposition. That's important. Is likewise, the same phases apply for a recruitment and retention of employees. 10 phases go as follows: traffic and top of funnel. This is where our lead generation systems are applied. Next, we have mid funnel, which is where our nurture systems are applied, where we're nurturing leads. From there, we have sales. This is where we convert leads. This is any successful business owner's favorite and least favorite part simultaneously. After sales, we cross the threshold from acquisition into fulfillment, post-purchase. We have an affirm touch point. This affirmation touch point is a surprise and delight moment that reduces buyer's remorse. It's usually in the minutes after a purchase, is personalized, and is meaningful. This is a culturally relevant touch point that is almost completely absent in everyone I've ever worked with, and it's something we have to install from scratch. From there, we have our activate, acclimate, and accomplish. These are essentially our customer onboarding and success systems. After accomplish, we move into adopt, where they're adopting the way of life, and advocate. This is where our best customers live, and our upsell, cross-channel sales, referrals, testimonies, case studies are realized. The good news is you don't have to know all of that today. What you do have to know is your immediate path forward this quarter, in the next 90-day period of time. You have to know what that next couple of steps looks like for you. So I said earlier how I spent almost a year working with VentureMap Elite clients doing large scale developments to heat map and zero in the place that moves the needle the most in the early days. And what we found across the board, easily 8 out of 10, probably even more, was everyone zeroed in on their growth plan. In hindsight, it makes perfect sense, all the sense in the world. There's nothing more relevant. There's nothing more pressing than what you have to do today, this week, and month, and quarter to move closer to your ultimate vision of success. So that's what we defined. We've gotten exceptionally good at it because we've focused intently on defining how to do that well, nonstop for quite some time. Now you can have that. What I've decided to do is shift value downstream. I think it is advantageous as a service provider to continuously adapt, reinvent, evolve, and cannibalize my own business to force us forward, to cause the necessitation of innovation. And that's why I'm allowing for the previous offer that people are literally paying for today in our VentureMap Elite community, in our operator group. These people are paying $1,000 plus a month for the same capability set of quarterly planning. And I'm giving the first quarterly plan away for free, your first 90-day personalized plan. This isn't some boilerplate, fill in the blank, Google Doc. This is a completely custom 90-day plan based on your business, your priorities, and the things required to move you from your current state to your target state in the next 90 days. It is very fast. It is very effective. It takes virtually no effort from you at all. Literally, you've got 3 clicks, maybe 4 from here. You click to join the free community. Once you're on the inside, you click to begin your intake. That'll take you around 3 to 5 minutes tops. You can use your voice, you can text. These questions are intentionally designed to give us the maximum ability for inference. They may seem like a tiny amount of questions, but they are mighty questions. They are heavy hitting. You can just speak directly into the microphone. We'll capture that data and we'll do what we do best, which is generate version 1 of your growth plan. From there, very quickly, you're going to get back a customized 90-day plan. This is our brand new offer for VentureMap. This is the same thing we were charging $100 a month for. Now it's available to members of our free community. We have a limited capacity. We've only got 100 spots available. Start the journey today. Click the button below. Join VentureMap, free school community. Run through your intake. Get your custom growth plan for free. Give me an opportunity to build the trust with you and to support the execution of your strategy this quarter. I'll see you on the inside.